Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Old Dominion Dynasty, and I have good news and I have bad news. Good news is, we're back on. Bad news is, the reason it took so long is a lot because I lost the footage to the bowl game against LSU, the Liberty Bowl, and it got totally, I don't know what happened, it got totally corrupted and I couldn't save it. So we're going to look at the stats here. We won 38-17, a pretty dominant victory. I would have liked to have you guys see it, but I mean, I really did about everything I could to try and recover the footage, and all I got was the first 5 minutes of the video, which was just setting up the game and not actually playing, the actual game itself. So I'm sorry, I did everything I could. I do what I can to back stuff up, but there's lots of footage and lots of storage that's required for that as well. So this is the first time that this is really, I don't know, it might be the second time it's happened in this series, but anyway, let's move on. We're just looking at the stats. 418 yards total offense to 312 ODU, 205 yards on the ground. And the interesting storyline in this game was that LSU had a running back who was in the same class as David Dixon, and they were both ranked in the top 5 running backs in their class. And Dixon really outdid his counterpart there. Shane McCarley, 12 of 18, 175, no touchdowns and interception, but still a good day. Josh Silva came in 3 for 3, 38 yards and a touchdown. He's been really good off the bench, but it seems like whenever I start him, he's absolute garbage. Dixon, 19 carries, 108 yards, 4 touchdowns. Huge day for him. Harvey Taylor, 7 carries, 27 yards, and Josh Silva had 3 for 64. Along with 65. So those other 2 runs were basically nothing. So other 2 runs amassed to a big -1 yard. Philip Dickens, 5 catches, 69 yards, and a touchdown. Big day for him. Brady Massey in his final game as a Monarch, 3 catches for 40 yards. Zach Pascal got in 1 for 14 in his final game. Connor Martin, unfortunately, didn't have a big impact there in his final game. Kevon Walker led the way tackling, 6 tackles, Rob Thompson 5, Marcus Massey and Roshan Doherty each with 4. Kanye Anderson had 2 tackles for a loss, TJ Ricks had 1, Chad Robinson a sack and 2 tackles for a loss. Nobody had any interceptions, pass deflection here or there, but that's about it. Nothing else in the defensive department. Tommy Patrick ended on a field goal from 46 yards out. And the 18th ranked Monarchs do improve to 13-1. A great season. Pulled out some nice wins. Overtime win against Virginia. Overtime win on the road against Boise State. And that really set up the season as it was for Old Dominion. Because it could have been just an 8 or 9 win year otherwise. Which still would have been good, but there it is. Yeah, Pierce. He was the guy, the running back for LSU. That was in the same recruiting class as David Dixon. They were both top 5 running backs in their class. So that made for a little bit of an interesting storyline. And the ODU defense did a very good job at shutting Pierce down after the first few carries, because he did tear the defense up a couple times in the early drives, but the defense adjusted. And see there, Tringan, I think that's how you say his name, 76 yards and a touchdown. Receiving, not bad. Robinson led the way with 9 tackles, then Beckwith with 7. Couple sacks, 3 total sacks for the LSU defense. Got Shane McCarley a few times. McCarley wasn't fast enough to outrun some of the speed they had on defense, but David Dixon, Philip Dickens, they were quick enough to outdo this defense. So there you go. That's the stats defensively for LSU. And now we're going to be moving on to end of season stuff. And we'll be looking at the stats the usual stuff we do to conclude a season and wrap it up before we move on into the off season and the next year. We're going to be moving into year 5, and now we're really getting into the point where the only real players that remain that aren't recruits, the only real life players are guys who would have been redshirted in the first year of this dynasty, because they're going to be 5th year guys. So we're really moving on to where now it's all about the recruits. It's all about the guys we're bringing in. And here's the bowl results. If you'd like to see them, of course, as usual, just pause it if you want to look at anything more specifically, if you want to look at scores more detailed. One bowl matchup I like is that Missouri versus Nebraska matchup, because that's an old Big 12 rivalry, a big rivalry between those two teams, and that's interesting to see it kind of renewed in a bowl game. I'd love to see that at some point. And it looked like it was a good game too, 31-27. One to remember, and Ohio State defeats Arizona to finish undefeated in the national championship, 49-34. Yeah, Arizona in the national championship, everybody. There's that. Not that it can't happen, but I mean, I think even in a few years, that's a little unrealistic. Arizona's a good team, but not sure that they're quite national championship ready. Here we are moving on to the award winners, and Cardale Jones, he's a senior now, has won a few awards himself for being quite an offensive player, but look at Rob Thompson, the Bednarik Award winner for top defender. Corey Littleton of Washington wins the Nagurski Award. O'Brien goes to Zach Klein of Cal. Corey Clement of Wisconsin gets the Doak Walker Award. Bolitnikoff goes to Kenny Lawler of Cal, another Cal player. Dan Billinson of Duke gets the Best Tight End Award. Outland goes to Cody Waldrop, who also gets the Remington for Best Center. Chad Robinson for the Lombardi Award. Best Linebacker goes to Michael Barton of Cal. Wow, Cal's racking up the award winners here. So are we. Rob Thompson for the Best Defensive Back in college football. Spencer Lindsey gets the Groza, and Jonathan Singleton, junior punter of Alabama, gets the Ray Guy Award. Adam Taylor gets the Best Return. Whew. We had to kind of fly through that, but that's how that goes. All-Americans, Cardale Jones and the NCAA All-First Team, Eddie Hill and Pierre Cormier, or Cormier probably, of Arizona. Ohio State raking in some All-American honors, not surprising. Chad Robinson gets in there on the defensive end position, which he had a great year, and TJ Armstrong, but first team All NCAA, Marcus Massey, probably because of their ridiculous tackle totals. It has a lot to do with the way the game calculates it, and when you play games, it doesn't necessarily properly give credit for assisted tackles, so a lot of guys get credit for solo tackles, and so that makes them statistically look better than they really are. So it's kind of weird. There are a few hiccups with the way the game calculates some stats, and so some things get a little skewed, including these All-American teams. But nonetheless, it is what it is. Rob Thompson gets second team All-American, and we're just going to run with it. It's just how it is. I think the game's fantastic. Few flaws, but overall, NCAA 14 has been a lot of fun for me to play, and I mean, I'm still playing it, so that says a lot about the game itself. And the all-freshman team, always interesting to look at this. Jermaine Coleman, good running back for UAB. He could be really special. Columbus Sweet, that is the best name. I think that's my favorite name of any recruit ever in NCAA. I've played a lot of dynasties over the years, and Columbus Sweet is without a doubt the best name. I don't know why. It's an awesome name. Tell me if you guys have ever seen any interesting names like that in your dynasties, because the name database could be better. Like, it's kind of, they have Smith and Robinsons. You just see those all over the place. You don't really see too many, like, interesting names. And that's one of them. Gunnar Holcomb, All-Conference USA. David Dixon gets on the All-Conference first team list. Not surprising. He had a good year. Troy Butler, the center, gets credit. And here's where we're going to dominate. Look at the defense now. Just check this here. 1, 2. Oh yeah, that's going to be it, guys. 2 players that are not ODU on defense on all conference. Everybody else, we had all conference. That's pretty funny. I mean, I like it. Because the Conference USA isn't really much of a defensive conference anyway. It's a lot of it's flashy offense and high scoring games and all that. So, you know, having a good defense in Conference USA isn't too difficult if you build something even half decent to stop the offenses. You can do pretty well. Now we'll get to the final rankings, and somehow, okay, Ohio State won the national championship, and I did advance to the final end of season thing, and Arizona somehow is ahead in the coaches poll. Explain to me how a team goes undefeated, beats the number 1 team in the national championship, and yet still the team that lost is number 1. Somebody explain that to me, because that makes no sense. There's no way you can justify that ever. You can never justify that. And Old Dominion hangs at number 18. We didn't move up or down after beating LSU 38-17, which I think is a little baloney that Cal is ahead of us at 9-4. Maybe they did play a tougher schedule, but come on, give us some credit. Come on. And the media did the same thing. Media poll said, oh, well, Arizona lost to Ohio State in the national championship, so let's keep them at number 1 because that makes sense. Yeah. So Old Dominion, we hold at 18 in both polls, which is fine. That's, I mean, listen, to end up ranked at all is great. It's great. Here's the final conference standings after all the bowl games and everything. And there it is. Undefeated in conference play. 13-1, and that's what the past 2 seasons, the dominance in conference play especially, has been what's prompted me to decide to move the team to the ACC now. I was planning on doing it by year 5, or not year 5, year 6 or 7, but the kind of extreme dominance that we've already exhibited, I think, says it's time to go on for a bigger and better challenge. And we'll be moving to the ACC in the next season, right into that Coastal Division right there, replacing Pittsburgh. That's how that's going to be. Pittsburgh's going to move to the American Conference, which I think fits them more anyway. So I know some people will probably disagree with that decision, but why not give us a chance in the ACC? Especially it naturally works with Virginia and Virginia Tech and North Carolina and all that. It's a natural fit for Old Dominion, being where they are located in Virginia. Big Ten, of course, there it is. Ohio State winning the national championship. And this is in year 4, remember? So we're in 2016 right now, the end of the 2016 season. And the Big Ten West, outside of Nebraska, really pretty weak. Actually, not pretty weak. Bad. It's just bad. Independent's not a conference, but Navy goes 11-2, Notre Dame 9-3. Everybody else sucks. There you go. That's my analysis. Thanks for watching. I'm not done, though. Don't stop watching if you thought this video was over. Miami University 11-3, not bad for a team coming out of the MAC there. 10-4 Central Michigan. It's always interesting to see how things change over the course of a dynasty. You know, if there are teams that come up, teams that typically aren't good but end up being good, and teams if they fall off after, you know, a certain period of time, or some teams just end up staying, you know, dominant. I mean, Oregon continues to be the top of the Pac-12, at least the North Division, if not the entire conference. Although Arizona definitely took care of business this time around, but the South generally sees a little bit more variation, whereas Oregon tends to dominate the North year in and year out. And Missouri wins the SEC East. And kind of a meh year. Vanderbilt, South Carolina, and then not much else. Missouri finished 7th in the rankings at the end of the season. Ole Miss and Alabama, and then again, kind of not too much going on after that. Arkansas 9-4, but they didn't do that well in conference play. And the Sun Belt, look at the Sun Belt. Look at this. 4-2, 4-2, 4-2 in conference play. That's hilarious. They can't decide who wants to be their champion. And now we move on to the stats. Shane McCarley ended up being the starter for most of the year. Josh Silva started early in the year, then sucked, and I put in McCarley, and it worked. McCarley had nearly 2,500 yards passing, 18 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions, which has been better than any touchdown-interception ratio by any quarterback that started the majority of the season up to this point. So Silva came in and did well on relief. He had 9 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, but it was a lot of garbage time stuff, so take it for what you will. 19 touchdowns, 1,441 yards for David Dixon, outstanding season. Another season over 1,000 yards, well over 1,000 yards. You can see the other guys got in some action, but it's been mainly Dixon. He had the bulk of the carries. He's a starting running back. And a great year. 381 yards after contact for Dixon. So that's good. That's great. And he's only, going into his junior year next season. Has a lot of potential. Philip Dickens, the senior wide receiver, 64 catches, 807 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Very good season. He really stepped up, and early in the Dynasty, I didn't think I was going to use him very much. I didn't think he was going to be that good of a receiver, but he really progressed and did well. Brady Massey, only a couple seasons with him because he was a junior college guy, so he didn't have much eligibility on him, and he's going to be graduating. 7 touchdowns, 49 catches. Brandon Elson, 44, 617 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's a good season. Lots of potential. Lawrence Reese, he'll be coming back next year. 10 catches, 3 touchdowns. He didn't see too much action, but when he did come in, he looked pretty good. So, we're going to be losing a few guys. Dickens, Massey, Martin. Those guys will be gone in the passing game, but we're going to be having some new guys stepping up, and it'll be interesting to see where the passing game goes next season. Troy Butler, going to miss him on the offensive line. He did quite well. And Marcus Massey, the junior safety, has been making a lot of tackles, but has been shaky sometimes in pass defense. I don't know where to go with him because he's good in run support, and he's just a good tackler, but when it comes to defending the pass, he hasn't been all that impressive. It's been good sometimes, but other times he's had his moments of getting burned, so I don't know. I don't know what to do with him. I might just, he's a junior, he'll be a senior next year, might just keep him in his spot, and we'll be looking for his replacement, obviously. Tackles for loss, Chad Robinson with 18, including 7 sacks. That's a team high. Great job by Robinson. The transfer from the University of Buffalo, he's maybe very excited about the defensive line, especially with John Jordan in there. Lots of potential with this team, but of course we're going to be going into a tougher conference next year as well, so take that into account. Rob Thompson returns next season, 4 interceptions. He also had 5 tackles for loss and a sack. A very good year, that's why he won the awards he did. Deflections, Jack Tocho, North Carolina State transfer, had 7 deflections. Justin Weddle, one of our recruits. Guys we recruited a couple seasons ago, 4 deflections. And there's going to be a lot of experience on this defense. You notice there's a lot of juniors on this team this season. There's going to be a lot of experienced seniors on this defense next year, and there's a lot of opportunities for them to make a statement. Rob Thompson with 2 defensive touchdowns, by the way. Hopefully he can repeat with an even better season next year, but it's going to be hard against tougher ACC offenses. Tommy Patrick, 15 to 17. I used Nick Reed once this year and realized that Tommy Patrick's just an all-around better kicker. So, if I could get rid of Nick Reed, I would, but you have to have somebody as a kicker and have to have somebody as a punter. You can't just have somebody be both. So, I mean, I have them both in the depth chart and when I use them, but you can't just list somebody on both kicker and punter, which is ridiculous because now I'm wasting a roster spot. But I guess if somehow Patrick got injured, then we wouldn't have anybody else really to do the kicking duties. Donald Simmons' kick returns didn't quite do the great returning he's done in the past, but the past season when he won the Best Returner Award. Excuse me while I had a brain fart. And Dixon came on as the big punt returner, averaged 20 yards a return, 2 touchdowns, both in that game against UAB. So it's been a heck of a season for Old Dominion. And now we'll get a quick look at the team stats. And if you're still watching, thank you very much. Type something like, I don't know. I was going to come up with something witty or clever, but, you know, just go crazy. Just type a bunch of gibberish, and I'll know. I'll know what's going on. But anyway, you see, we did actually pretty well in comparison to the rest of the country in total offense. Really an overall good season. Offense did get so much better. That's been a big issue, is consistency on the offensive side of the ball. And that's been very important to improve upon. Indeed. Allowed 3,300 yards of passing, 1,677 yards on the ground. Defensively, good season. Always can improve, though. Few instances where our defenses looked pretty bad, and look at this. We were the best team in the country on third down conversions. Had the most total conversions, had the best percentage, 61% of third down converted. So that's really good. It's just we'd like to not have so many third downs, you know. It's great to be converting them, but it's great to also not have to get to third down every time. So that's something to look to next season, is reducing the amount of third downs by converting on earlier downs. Red zone, Arizona, 80 red zone attempts, but we had 70. 50 times punched it in the end zone, 13 times kicked a field goal, and 7 times did not convert on either. Mostly turnovers. Defensively, we allowed 53 red zone trips, 31 touchdowns, 14 field goals. That's an 84% conversion rate. Never look at penalties because they're not properly given. And turnover difference of 1. So this year we were not horribly negative like usual. Actually had +1 in turnover difference. So a nice reprieve from the suckage of turning the ball over. Alright, one coach of the year. Just so you guys know, I don't know if I showed that in a previous video. I may or may not have, but it is what it is. This is a dynasty based around Old Dominion, by the way. Not a coaching dynasty. I've kind of taken the focus off the coaching aspect, but I'm just showing here. This shows the last 4 seasons of what we've done. And by the way, my name is not Rex Castle. That's just I threw that. I went to a name generator website and just pressed generate a bunch of times, and that's the name that popped up. So there it is. Signing a new contract, obviously. Want to keep going. Next time, we will be doing the off-season, preseason things and getting prepared for year number 5 in our first year in the ACC. I will see you all then.